Hello and welcome. It is time for episode number 3 of the MW Sports Show. Today will be mostly devoted to our NFL playoff predictions, but we will also talk about some of the other big news across the NFL, such as coaching changes and the Week 18 storylines, etc. But once again, today it is me, Mr. M, and alongside me here is Mr. W, who will talk in just a minute here. And we are ready to get you ready for the NFL playoffs. But actually, before we discuss the playoffs, let's start with some of the storylines from the final week of the season and which teams got in, which teams got eliminated, some of the other big news. But it's only right, it is a Wisconsin sports channel. We got to start with the Green Bay Packers, who it wasn't the perfect game, but they found a way to beat the Chicago Bears. Jordan Love looked great as usual down the stretch. I mean, when it was week 10, I don't know if a lot of people were expecting this, but here at the end of the season, finish strong and ultimately find a way to beat the Bears, get into the playoffs where they face the Cowboys.
Yeah, 10 in a row, going to the playoffs. Couldn't have asked for a better season this year. Jordan Love, I mean, that's all you could have wanted, and to see improvement from him over the season and to see, I mean, at the beginning of the year, we just wanted to see flashes of
Yeah.
of of the future, but I think he delivered far beyond it. Not just him, but plenty of our young guys, especially in the offensive side of the ball. Whereas the defense, you expected to be a bit stronger, and they certainly delivered. So, as a Packers fan, I couldn't be happier at the way the season went.
Yeah, I'd say that, and even the defense the last couple weeks. Obviously, Joe Barry getting a lot of heat, and rightfully so. But he did deliver in the last couple weeks against Minnesota and Chicago. Not the greatest quarterbacks, but still coming through. We'll see if he can do the same against the Dallas Cowboys. But yeah, let's take a look at some of the other games here. The Jaguars getting out of the playoffs from the Titans, who have also had some big news recently with their head coach. But the Jaguars, I mean, they were like eight
Blew it,
and three at one point,
blew it.
something like that, and just could not find a way to win down the stretch here, which means that the Houston Texans won the division with their win on Saturday.
The AFC South was fun this year, man. It has been some
Yes.
time since it's been this good. I mean, that game Saturday night was fun. It was just fun to watch as a neutral. Not always the best football, but it was just a great game to watch, a great game to be in prime time, and a great way to get us settled in for Sunday.
Yeah, who would have thought either of those teams, especially the Colts, would be in that position? I mean, CJ Stroud certainly delivered. I mean, I thought he could be okay, but he certainly played pretty unbelievable, especially at the end of the year. So that was one heck of a division. Unfortunately for Jaguars fans, it was not their year. But the Texans find a way to win it this season. Let's take a look here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, well, they clinched the division, but
Oof, oof. That was a brutal one. That was brutal. But you know what? Defense. Well, it might not win them a championship, but it's important, and it doesn't matter how bad Carolina is. They're an NFL team, and to pitch a shutout when your offense draws a blank in that important spot is credit to their defense, and maybe they can do the same to the Eagles.
maybe. I mean, certainly been struggling here as of late. I mean, at least they didn't make Carolina's offense and Bryce Young look as good as the Packers did. So
They did manage that, but they might need to score a few more points if they want to be Philly.
yeah, although they only would have lost by one if you go based off the point total for Week 18.
Yeesh.
Buccaneers scored 9, Eagles 10, and the Eagles got absolutely destroyed by the Giants. I don't know if really anybody expected that. Obviously the Giants have had a disappointing year, as we've talked about, and the Eagles, I mean, they were looking good when we had our last podcast episode, and here in the last 5-6 weeks, it's been downhill.
Yeah, I mean, you say the Giants season has been disappointing, and it has, but the Eagles have had a really disappointing December. You know, since Thanksgiving, it's just and they were so good, so hopeful, and fun to watch. They just looked solid. You know, I
Yeah.
don't think anyone could have seen this coming, but they have really been on a slide, and it would be really shocking to see them turn it around, especially after losing a game in such an important spot like that to that team.
Yeah, I think Cowboys had the head to head, so I think they still wouldn't have won the division, but obviously still got to play as if you're going to win the division, and they certainly did not look too good. Obviously, they get the Buccaneers, so they'll have a shot to right the ship there, but we'll see how far they can get in the playoffs. It's not looking too good as of late for the Eagles. And let's see. Finally, here Sunday Night Football, Buffalo, Miami for the division. I mean, I guess you couldn't be too surprised by the final score. Buffalo obviously has turned it up in the second half of the year. Miami has kind of done the opposite, and that it'll take Tua and Mike McDaniel and those guys time to really become a threat in the AFC. But Buffalo, it's still with Josh Allen and great team around him, still can make a run at the Super Bowl. We'll see.
Yeah, every game that Buffalo plays is exciting because Josh Allen he's a threat to both teams. You know, both he scares both fan bases in every game. He's always going to deliver something. You know, as a neutral, those games are fun to watch, and I think the Dolphins. I mean, obviously their problem is just they can't seem to score against good defenses, and unfortunately for them, the playoffs are filled with said good defenses. So they've got to figure something out quick if this is to be their year, which it increasingly looks like it won't be.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but in 0 degree weather in Arrowhead, that could be interesting and not a good way for Miami. Buffalo with Josh Allen, they will get to face the Steelers in the wild card round. We will see if, I mean, it does feel like if Buffalo plays their best ball, they're very tough, if not impossible to beat, but just the turnovers can kill them in some games. And we'll see if
They
that's
can
the
win and lose
case.
every single one they play.
Yeah, we'll see come playoff time if it's their year or not. But with all that being said, I think we've gone through some of the biggest storylines, some of the surprises and stuff in the playoffs this year. So I think it's about time for us to reveal our picks for the playoffs, and we will go in order of the games. So starting on Saturday, we got the Cleveland Browns facing off against the Houston Texans. Mr. W, who do you like here and why?
I like the Browns, and I think this will be a really interesting game. I think it's two pretty evenly matched teams, two solid teams who are playing well right now. Two quarterbacks who are thriving in their first year with their respective teams. And I'm looking forward to it, man. Joe Flacco, CJ Stroud, it's about as fun as a 4 or 5 game can get. That said, I have the Browns. You just learn to not trust the FC South a little bit. And the North has been such a strong division this year that it's hard to judge those teams by the record. I mean, obviously Joe Flacco isn't the greatest quarter. He's not in his prime anymore, but he's sure playing like it. And I think that team is just strong enough as a whole that they'll come out on top in a close one in Houston.
Yeah, I like that as well. I think the Browns have beaten some good teams this year, the Ravens, 49ers, a couple others as well. And I believe they also beat the Texans earlier. So, obviously Joe Flacco has been up and down, but certainly from expectations, more up than people expected, including myself. But I think this Cleveland Browns team, I mean, they could get on a run here with Flacco with some playoff experience. And I think with the Texans, I mean, I do like CJ Stroud in the future, but in his first postseason ever, it could be difficult, especially against a great defense like the Browns. So but yeah, it is definitely an interesting game. I think Cleveland is just a little too talented to lose there. in that one. So then we go to the night game, which we alluded to, the Miami Dolphins going to Arrowhead in very cold weather, 0 degrees or so, I believe, is what has been rumored. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But definitely, that feels like an advantage for Kansas City. I'd probably pick them regardless. Miami has been dealing with a lot of injuries, and while it's been a up and down journey for Mahomes, a lot more than usual, obviously come playoff time, you got to trust the guys who have been there, who have had good runs. And I think that should be enough to at least get them to the divisional round. We'll see from there. But Miami, I mean, it's just been December over the years for them that has really been a collapsing month for them. See if that's continues into January or if they can surprise everyone and win in 0 degree weather.
Yeah, look, this one's pretty simple. I mean, these are two teams that at the beginning of the year you would have liked as two of the top teams in the league. And I think that while they both had their flaws and their rough patches, I think that Miami just can't score against good teams. At least not enough to keep up with that Kansas City offense. I think Miami is getting closer and closer every year, but it just doesn't feel like it's going to happen, especially in that cold, especially in that environment at Arrowhead. I think that they're just not going to be able to match the offense of Kansas City. And from the Kansas City perspective, they have plenty of experience. While that may not be able to overcome their struggles this season, it'll certainly help them early on in these playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. Feels like an advantage for Kansas City there. But another game that'll probably be cold out in Buffalo will be the next game on Sunday afternoon, where the Pittsburgh Steelers somehow found a way to get to the playoffs. That AFC North is crazy. They'll be traveling to Buffalo. So, Mr. W, I mean, you know, do you really have to ask who you like in this one?
You do, because that's the Steelers' thing,
I
right?
guess.
They will not be the better team in Buffalo. They won't be the better team. They will be outgained, but they have a habit of hanging around, and Josh Allen likes to make things interesting. He likes to keep the heart rates up there in Buffalo. So I think it'll be closer than expected. I bet the Steelers on the line, but I do think that ultimately there's just no way that I can pick the Steelers to win a playoff game. I think the Bills are playing good football at the right time, and I think it's their time to shine.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Pittsburgh can make it tough on opposing offenses. I think Buffalo could have some troubles, especially early. It could be like last year, honestly, that Miami game where, they thought they were going to blow out the Dolphins, and then it ended up being a lot closer, especially a team like Pittsburgh that just plays that gritty football, and Josh Allen, who can turn it over at any time. It definitely could be closer, but with all that being said, I would be pretty shocked if Pittsburgh actually won. They might keep it close, but Buffalo just feels like kind of like Kansas City. It's been an up and down year, but I think they will find a way to at least go to the divisional round, if not further. All right, then we get the big game for us Packers fans Sunday at 3:25. The Green Bay Packers facing off the Dallas Cowboys.
Whew.
Could be tough, but hey, we've been really good here down the stretch. Cowboys always find ways to choke in the playoffs. So let's see who Mr. W has winning this one.
Now, this is a tough one to pick because it's hard to see beyond your own biases. But as a Packers fan, I couldn't be happier with their chances. I think that, like you said, we're playing our good football at the right time. And we talk about 10 in a row against the Bears. I think it's 9 of 10 against the Cowboys. I think we certainly have found ways to have their number. Unfortunately, I just think that our youth is really going to show when the lights shine brightest. I think that while we have a team that is growing and becoming very talented, I think it would be kind of ridiculous to think that they could go in to Dallas and beat the 2 seed. And that's not to say we can't. I think we have a great chance, but ultimately I'm gonna have to stick with the Cowboys, whether I like it or not. I'll certainly be hoping that I'm wrong, praying that I'm wrong, but I do think that the Cowboys team, especially on the lines, is just too good for us.
Yeah, I think Dallas obviously has been very good at home this year. Dak has had one of the best years of his career. That defense has showed promise at times. It's obviously going to be a tough environment. But with that being said, obviously the Packers have, was with Aaron Rodgers, but they have won a lot of games recently, and they have not lost yet in Jerry World, new stadium. So, including that Super Bowl win. So we'll see if that continues. And well, saying that, I have the Green Bay Packers pulling out one of the biggest upsets in playoff history. I do. I'm just a believer here. I think Jordan Love has been very good down the stretch. Obviously, all these guys have developed, as we've said. Jaden Reed. I think our offense could be quite impressive. Obviously, we'll see what type of game it is. But honestly, a fast start would probably be big for the Packers. You get behind the Cowboys and it starts to get tough to keep pace with them because that offense can be dangerous. But as a Packers fan, like it or not, I got the Green Bay Packers moving on to San Francisco, which will be even more interesting. But yeah, I think that just the number that we have with the Cowboys, we know the Cowboys choke a lot in the playoffs. I think that could possibly happen this postseason. At least I'm hoping it is. So we'll see.
That would be wonderful.
That would be one heck of a playoffs. I mean, it's already been a successful season for the Packers, as we've talked about. But we win in Dallas and beat the Cowboys again. That would be pretty unbelievable.
It would really cement this as the start of the Jordan Love era, and you know, the same way that Rodgers has seemed to pass on ownership of the Bears to Love, we could see the passing of the torch and the passing of the ownership of the Cowboys.
Yeah, well, that's definitely what we will be hoping. And for the sake of predictions, I got the 7 seed Packers moving on. Then on Sunday night, we got the Rams taking on the Detroit Lions. Of course, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff revenge game. I mean, this is just a fun playoff game in general. The Rams have been peaking at the right time. The Lions, they haven't been perfect down the stretch, but obviously a great season for them, winning the NFC North. I got the Rams winning this one, so I got another upset here. I just like the way Matthew Stafford has been playing down the stretch. I believe in the offseason I said, a lot of people were kind of down on the Rams. I thought they could be still a dangerous team. They still got a lot of their top pieces from that Super Bowl team. And I think that heading into Ford Field, it could be tough. First playoff game in Detroit for a long time. And that could be, the fans could be wild, but I think Stafford will have some success and they will find a way to win that one in a fun game.
I agree that the Rams are strong and that they're certainly stronger than you or I and many people expected. However, I am going to have to stick with our fellow members of the NFC North. I think that the Lions have finally found the combo that can finally put it together this year. I think they've well, we may have helped a bit by falling off, but they've this Lions team, it feels different than past years. Where last year, even the year before, it felt like they were like the young upstart, and now it feels like they're here. This is their division. It's their time for now, and I'd like to think that they're able to win a home playoff game and advance on to the second round.
Yeah, I mean, that should be a fun one. We'll definitely, especially Stafford and Goff, how they play against their former teams in the first round. Obviously, we got a few revenge games here, but probably none bigger than that one. So we'll see how that one goes. Definitely should come down to the wire. And finally, wrapping off wild card weekend, not the best matchup on Monday night. We got Philadelphia Eagles heading down to Tampa to play the Buccaneers, and all things considered, the Buccaneers have done better this year, 9-8, than last year, 8-9 with Brady. So we'll see if that continues in the playoffs. But I do have the Eagles winning this one. Obviously, this might be one of the weirder games. Eagles are definitely a better team, but just down the stretch, just not good football at all, obviously, as we talked about. But I just think Buccaneers are definitely beatable. And I think that the Eagles get one win. They could get on a playoff run, but obviously, the way they've been playing down the stretch leads most of us to think otherwise. But we'll see in the wild card round if they play any better and they have the last few weeks.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to finally agree with you on this one.
Yeah.
I think that the Eagles are less bad. I think
Yeah.
I don't love picking them to win, but I like picking the Buccaneers more to lose.
All right, time to move on to the divisional round. Obviously, this is where some of our matchups start to differ a little bit, but we will start here in the AFC. We both have the Joe Flacco revenge game, the Cleveland Browns heading to Baltimore. Yeah, we'll start here with Mr. W. Who do you like in that game?
I like the Ravens. I think the Ravens are they're just better. They're the one team in the NFL this year that I'm kind of sure of that they haven't really looked they haven't gone through a weak patch. They've been solid throughout, and I think that while the Browns are certainly a good team that'll put up a fight, make it muddy, make it a tough game. I think that the Ravens ultimately are just too good to lose that early, and I think that while they have a tendency to fall short this time of year as of late, I think that this year they find a way past the Browns, and especially at home, I think that it would be really hard to bet against them.
Yeah, I like the Ravens a lot. What they've been showing this year, except against the AFC North. If the Steelers somehow move on, but certainly the Browns, the way they've been playing with that defense, it could be difficult for the Ravens against the AFC North. So I'm actually going to go with the Cleveland Browns here. I think that this will just be the typical AFC North. Could be a low scoring game. And I don't know if I trust the Ravens as much in the low scoring games. I think the Browns have, as I said, beaten a lot of good teams. And I think they'll have a good chance here in Baltimore. And I think Joe Flacco might play well in his old stadium. So I'm going to ride with the Browns. Another crazy upset here in the playoffs. The other game in the AFC, which we both as well have, is the Kansas City Chiefs heading out to Buffalo for a typical playoff game. Although it's usually been in Kansas City, so that'll be different. Does that change your opinion, Mister W? For who
It's that
wins?
time of year. It is that time of year. We get to this point of the year, and like clockwork, these two teams meet. I think it'll happen again, and I'm looking forward to it. They tend to put on a show. That said, I think the Bills are just much stronger around their quarterback, and I mean they're hot, and I think that Kansas City, while the cold will favor them against Miami Dolphins, I think that ultimately the Bills. I like them in the shootout. I like them better in that type of game.
Yeah, I also got the Bills winning this game, moving to the championship. This should be a fun matchup here, as it usually is. But obviously, Kansas City has been probably even more, or probably more disappointing this year than Buffalo has. I think their offense will start to figure it out in the playoffs, but I just don't know if it's their year again this year. That it probably will be in a few years again, but I think that Buffalo is very dangerous. They haven't even really been playing their best football here at the end, but they've found ways to win, beat good teams, and I think that'll help them in the playoffs here. And yeah, they will move on. So that means that the next games are in the NFC, which we both have different here. So I have the Packers at 49ers and the Rams at the Eagles. A couple interesting matchups. But Much as I love the Packers, the 49ers have had our number. That will be a very tough game to win. So I will pick the 49ers here, but I would be hoping for the Packers. And then we got the Rams at the Eagles. This, I don't know. It's really just been the Rams have been really good here at the end of the year. The Eagles have struggled a bit, or quite a bit. So yes, it's going to be played in Philadelphia if this happens. But I got the Rams winning. I think Stafford, the playoff experience again, Super Bowl experience can help him here. And the Eagles, they could get on a run, but it just does not really look like that, at least in my opinion here as of late.
Then we'll head on over to my NFC, where I have the Eagles traveling to the West Coast to play the 49ers and the Lions Cowboys rematch,
Yeah.
which would be fun. To start though with the 5-1 game, this it'll be odd, right? But it's the NFL. Weird stuff happens, football happens, and you can never underestimate the randomness, it seems at times. I think that while the Eagles are playing poorly at the moment, by this point it'll be the very end of January. And I think that the Eagles, I think they're gonna go in there and steal this one. I think that this Eagles team, while they've been struggling, while they won't be favored, while they don't look good, I think the 49ers here coming off the bye, I think they're beatable. And I think that the Eagles find a way to, even just for a moment, turn back to their early season selves to show all of that talent that they have. I think they find a way to walk into San Francisco and walk out and win away from the Super Bowl. And then the Lions Cowboys rematch, which cross your fingers, except for the Cowboys part. But it would be fun to see. But I think that the Cowboys are stronger. I think that the Lions are still just lacking in areas. I just don't believe in Jared Goff, especially when it comes to January. I know he's done it, he's been there, but I don't think he can lead a team. I think that he can be a part of a team, but I don't think he can lead a team that far. So ultimately, I think that I'm going to go with the Cowboys to find a way to not cowboy themselves and to find a way to at least hold off their choking beyond January.
Yeah, maybe they can finally make the conference championship first time since the 1990s. Yeah, it does feel like the path is definitely there for the Cowboys. Not a lot of strong teams, especially in both sides of the ball in the NFC. But yeah, that Lions Cowboys game could be interesting. We'll see how it all plays out. Hopefully, the Packers can end the Cowboys season before then. All right, time for the conference championship game. I have the AFC championship as the Cleveland Browns heading to Buffalo. And what I think could be an interesting game. I'm going to stick with the team that I've had in the Super Bowl all along, the Buffalo Bills. I just think, the Browns could have a good run here. Flacco has done some crazy stuff in the playoffs before, but I think it comes to a point where this Browns team is just it feels like it can be so up and or so down every week, and it'd be kind of tough to have them in the Super Bowl. Buffalo, I think it's been a while since they've been in the Super Bowl. Obviously, they've been hoping the last few years, and I think their wishes will come true this year. I got them taking care of the Browns and going to the Super Bowl. And then in the NFC Championship for me, I have the LA Rams versus 49ers rivalry. The Rams could keep this interesting. I mean, I'm not saying they're as good as the 49ers, but certainly they usually seem to play competitive with them. They won that NFC Championship game against them back in when they won the Super Bowl 2021. So I could see the Rams keep this competitive, but the 49ers are certainly a tough team to beat, especially on the road. And I think they will head back to the Super Bowl to face off against Buffalo, which, if you remember, that is what I had in my predictions before the season started. But both these teams still look pretty good, and like that still is a potential Super Bowl matchup here.
In my AFC Championship, I have the Bills as well, but I have them going to Baltimore to play the Ravens. And we just saw one Harbaugh do well, get far. I think we're going to see the other one do the same, match the feat. I think that while the Bills are certainly on their good days able to compete with and beat any team in the league, I think that I don't know that they can string together three in a row. I think that this Ravens team is just built for January, and I think that they take care of business finally as the one seed. And then over in the NFC, I have the five-seeded Eagles at the two-seeded Cowboys. The Eagles making a unexpected run, if you will, and I think it ends here. I think that the Cowboys have shown time and time again here down the stretch and throughout the season that they're the better team out of those two. As much as maybe the rest of the country would like to see them fall, I think that they find a way to, at least for the moment, deny our great hatred of them and all that they stand for. But I think that this is the year that the Cowboys will make it to the Super Bowl. I think that I would love to be proven wrong. Do not get me wrong. I would love to see the Packers beat at them. I'd love to see anyone beat them, but I can't, in honest and good faith, put this Eagles team the way they're playing right now in the Super Bowl. And I think that in a war of attrition that the playoffs tend to be, and the Cowboys come out on top in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if they do not play the 49ers, I think the Cowboys could be in good shape to beat almost anybody. Obviously, I hope they don't. And, of course, because of my bias, might have them out in the first round.
But so good at home. So good at home.
Yeah, I mean, if they give 3 home games to the Super Bowl, it'll be tough to win them for the away team, but we'll see. And it's time to go to the Super Bowl. I have the San Francisco 49ers against the Buffalo Bills, as I did in my predictions at the beginning of the year. And I'm going to go with the same winner. I had the Buffalo Bills. I mean, obviously the Bills will need to play some quite good football to win all of these games, some that they maybe have not played typically this year. But I think they're more than capable of it. Obviously, Josh Allen any given Sunday can be best quarterback in the league, or he can turn into Jameis Winston, or some combination of the two. But I think that this year, I mean, I just think eventually Buffalo is going to get a Super Bowl here. San Francisco, they've been to Super Bowls as of late. The Kansas City one in 2019, but they usually just cannot find a way to finish the job here. And I do think that continues. It could get out earlier, or they could go all the way and maybe even win it. But they usually just don't finish the job. And I think that this year will be similar.
I want you to close your eyes, Em, and I'll paint you a word picture. It's February. It's Las Vegas. And in stroll the Cowboys fans.
Mm.
They stroll into Las Vegas high on their horses, talking about dim boys. Not looking across at the Ravens team and all that they have, but instead their pride, their misplaced faith in Mike McCarthy. They're gonna stroll in there thinking that they got it. There's gonna be so many videos and so many tweets that we'll be able to point to and laugh at for years. Because when they get there, Dak is gonna show why he hasn't won a Super Bowl. The Cowboys are gonna show that they are in fact still the Cowboys, and if they don't choke in January, goddamn, they'll find a way to do it in February. And Mike McCarthy will show the whole world how he has gone 30 years, or somewhere close to that. It feels like 30. It feels like 100. And only won one ring with Aaron Rodgers and now Dak Prescott. I
Wow.
think that they will turn, Cinderella, the pumpkin, will turn right back into whatever it turned back into. And I think that the Cowboys will show their true colors. And on the other side of the ball, I think it's the Ravens' time. I think that Harbaugh is such a good coach, such a good, consistent coach in a time where the coaches of old seem to be struggling and falling off. I think that he finds a way to adapt to the new era, get a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson playing one hell of a season. God, has he been good. MVP quality. If he doesn't win it, he's certainly at the top of the conversation. I think that this Ravens team, while at times it's felt like it's been under the radar, they haven't had the big wins, they haven't had the terrible losses. They've just kind of been steady. And I think that they've been winning good, close football games. And I think that when push comes to shove, when January turns to February, when we are all starting to get tired of the cold up here, I think that the Ravens will get the ring. I think that they will find a way to do what they haven't done in about a decade and win it.
Yeah, it's more than possible. I mean, if we both have the Browns Ravens divisional round. I mean, I'm just worried about any AFC North game can go anyway. But if they can get past that, they definitely have looked the best, like the best team in the AFC. And I mean, certainly if they play the Cowboys, but I mean, they beat the 49ers. I think this Ravens team will be tough to beat, especially there in the Super Bowl. So, yes, we've wrapped up all of our playoff predictions here. But before we finish up here today, we do want to take a look at some of the big coaching news across the NFL. As you all know, this is the time that some NFL coaches have their job dismissed. Several, like Ron Rivera, Arthur Smith, and a few others, come to not much of a surprise. But there are some of note that we would like to cover more in detail here today. So I'll start here. One of the first coach firings of the offseason here was Mike Vrabel. A bit surprising there in Tennessee. I mean, a few years ago when they were in the AFC Championship, Mike Vrabel, Derrick Henry, heck, Tannehill playing well. Looks like that team is going to look completely different, next season, and it could be tough years ahead for the Titans trying to stay alive in the AFC South. But definitely a surprise to me. I thought Vrabel has had some success. It hasn't been as good the last couple of years, but I thought it was good enough. But certainly the Titans thought they could move in a new direction, and we'll see who they get next if they can compete next year.
Ain't that the truth? Black Monday came and Black Monday was brutal, as much as it ever is. And a lot of coaches on the hot seat found that the seat was, in fact, too hot. And a lot of teams moved on. I think, as happens in the NFL, you don't have a whole lot of time to prove yourself. And for good reason. It's a very competitive league. And I'm looking forward to seeing who all these teams place the coaches with. But there's definitely a lot of these guys who some of you saw coming, some of you didn't. But plenty of firings. You mentioned Vrabel, especially Ron Rivera. I think you could have very much seen coming. I think that team was a bit disappointing this year, especially as the year went on. I think that, some other guys, Arthur Smith, expected. Unfortunate for him, but that team
It's
just
been
never,
tough.
never really came to fruition. I think they had a great opportunity this year
Yeah.
with that division and,
Yeah.
and just kind of blew it. So I think that makes a lot of sense, those two. However,
Yeah, I mean, you got some of the old head coaches who've been doing this for quite a while that certainly, especially with Pete Carroll out there in Seattle, I don't know if, we thought Vrabel was surprising. I mean, talk about a team at 9-8 who's been pretty much consistently good here all along. Obviously, Pete Carroll's found a way to win a Super Bowl out there and go to another one and have some success. I think that was certainly surprising. And then also, I mean, Bill Belichick a little less just because it's been a bit disappointing here as of late. But certainly, it'll be tough to replace those guys who've been coaching all these years, who've been having all this success. It won't be easy to replace, but I think that, give it up for Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick. But if it wasn't this year, it was going to be in a few years, I suppose, regardless.
yeah, two hell of a runs. And, all good things come to an end. I think that as a Packers fan, there's some there's some trauma there with Pete Carroll and his time in Seattle, and
Mm.
it'll be good to let go of some of those memories as he goes. And Bill Belichick, obviously, was starting to feel like he'd coached there forever, and he's earned it. But those, ultimately they, while they're shocking and shocking to the system and to the league, I think that they make some sense, and it'll be interesting to see what those teams look like going forward.
Yeah, I think that could be some of the more interesting stuff of the offseason to see who these teams that have fired coaches, Brandon Staley as well, some of the guys in season, who they go with, if they can improve the team, because a lot of these, just they have talent, but they can't find a way to get what they can out of the talent. So we'll see if that'll happen this year, if they can get better head coaches, or if they will stay as irrelevant franchises. But that about wraps it up here with this episode. Comment below what you think about our playoff picks to go along with anything else you would like to share, whether it's about the coaches or week 18 or whatever. Comment it below. And of course, if you have not subscribed yet, it would be greatly appreciated as we are approaching that 1,000 mark. But that about wraps it up. See you next time.
Until then, go Pack Go, and Packers Super Bowl, here we come.
Absolutely. This is our year.